Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Today's topic, we're going to talk about feedback because I think if you're running a business, especially a service business, your product is in fact your people. The sales presentations that those people do, the proposals that they put together, the work that they're putting in front of your clients. And so if people are in fact the product, that means the way you critique that work, that is in fact again your business. If you get your feedback right, then your people ideally hope end up improving each and every week. But if you get it wrong, what they end up doing is probably hiding their work from you, right? Like they stop bringing you their work or the examples of their work, their drafts. They wait until it's maybe too late to fix anything. The framework that I want to share with you today, it comes from the Stanford Design School. If you haven't been to the Stanford Design School website, you got to go check it out. There's a lot of really cool information there. And they teach this particular framework to designers. I'm telling you, though, I do believe that these concepts with respect to feedback apply directly to any of us, any entrepreneur that's leading a company, leading a team. And what I really like most about it is that the framework covers both sides, how to give feedback, but also how to receive it. So let's start with giving feedback. Okay, there's really 3 rules to giving feedback. Rule number 1, critique the work, not the person. Critique the work, not the person. You're not evaluating the human who made the thing. You're evaluating the thing. So instead of, hey, you didn't address the client's timeline, instead it's, hey, this proposal doesn't address the client's timeline. Now, that is a very small shift in language, but it does make a major difference with respect to how that critique lands. In other words, one version puts the person on defense. The other version, though, puts you both on the same team that's just critiquing or looking at the work together. Rule number 2, open with questions. When giving feedback, open with questions. So before you say one word of critique, ask, hey, where are you in the process? Or what can I help you with the most? Now, maybe they already know that the middle section that you're thinking about critiquing, maybe they already know that middle section is weak, or maybe they're stuck on pricing and don't need your opinion on, some other aspect of whatever it is they're presenting. See, questions will end up framing the conversation. They tell you where your feedback is actually needed instead of where you simply assume it's needed. And from a leadership perspective, understanding what they may believe they need help with is incredibly important versus just diving in with the assumption that you know what needs to be fixed. I think there's also a bonus move here. When something doesn't make sense to you, just say so. Like, hey, I'm puzzled. Walk me through your reasoning here. Like, why did you choose this approach? What constraints don't I know about that maybe you were working with? I think that's a great leadership question and a great question to tee up additional feedback. You're going to learn something when you ask questions like this every single time. Now, rule number 3, check your personal preferences at the door. This comes from the author of this literature that I'm talking about, this framework. His name's Scott Birkin. And I think this particular rule, check your personal preferences at the door, I think it's hard for a lot of us. You have to break the idea or shatter the idea that anything you like or you believe in is good and anything you don't like is bad. See, your team didn't build whatever it is they're presenting, or this individual didn't build whatever they're presenting for you. This deliverable is not for you. They built it for whoever they are presenting to, the prospect or the client. So the question is never, do I like this? As the leader, the question shouldn't be, do I like this? The question is, does this accomplish the mission? Does this accomplish the goal? So in terms of checking your personal preferences at the door, what I'm really saying is be objective. Like, make sure you're serving the goal and not your personal preference or taste. Okay, that was giving feedback. Now let's talk about receiving feedback, because as a leader, you're not just giving critique, you're also taking it. You're taking it from clients, you're taking it from members of your leadership team, you're taking it from the market at large. So 3 more rules here, okay? Rule 1, when it comes to receiving feedback, physically stand with your critic. Physically stand with your critic. What does that mean? Well, Stanford, who put this framework out, they mean that literally. Like, come around to their side of the table, stand next to them, and look at whatever the scenario is, if it's a piece of work or a presentation, like a critic would. Now, again, design typically is thinking around product. So this literal interpretation, walk over to the other side and let's look at the product together, is a bit more applicable when you're looking at a physical product. But anything that you're critiquing, try to come around the table, stand next to them, right? And look at the body of work, whatever it may be, together. That physical standing next to your critic is a great way to say, hey, we're evaluating this together, and not simply you're looking at me critiquing me. Okay? In other words, feedback isn't you versus them. It's both of you versus the problem. Now, rule number 2, in terms of receiving feedback, never get defensive. Never get defensive. When you argue with feedback, like when you justify or when you explain, you actually look like you're unwilling to accept input. And here's the part that I was reading that kind of stuck with me. Showing that you could hear feedback and respond thoughtfully, that actually reflects well on you. So taking critique gracefully isn't what I would deem to be a weakness by any stretch. I think it's actually a sign of leadership. And your whole team, provided you have a team around you, they're observing how you take that critique, right? So you are modeling a behavior that you hope they demonstrate when it's them being critiqued. Rule number 3, silence is golden. Now, this rule shows up in lots of places, but when it comes to receiving feedback, silence is golden. The more you talk, the less feedback you get. See, I think we fall into this trap. We start speaking for our work. We start defending things that frankly should be self-evident. The body of work, the work itself has to speak for itself. So shut up and listen. And when you do speak, ask why. Like, it's not the critic's job to be articulate. It's your job to find the insight behind what they're telling you. So ask why. Uncover the motivation or the critique here if you don't understand. Okay, here's your action item for the week. Okay, let's say you've got a review of some sort coming up, a proposal or a one-on-one or a client deliverable, something. I want you to pick one rule from the giving side and one rule from the receiving side, and incorporate them both into the dialogue that you're having. So one from the giving side, one from the receiving side. Maybe you open with questions instead of opinions. That would be you giving feedback. Maybe you stay silent for 10 seconds longer than feels comfortable. That would be the receiving side. So again, one conversation where there's critique and feedback, just leverage 2 of the rules and just watch how that changes the conversation that's being had. Because I think the truth here is that feedback is never just an event. It's actually a more robust system than that. And I think the best leaders, the best entrepreneurs build really good feedback systems for their teams And as a result, they're progressing. They're getting better each and every day, each and every week, month, year. That's all I have for you today in the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.